All right. Welcome back to Happy Hour with Heather and Guest. I'm that other dude, Andrew, and I'm joined as always by Heather.
Hello.
And today is episode number 85. We will be talking about Psychlona and a band. I think it's Somei, Somei. It might be Somei. I'm not 100% sure. So, where would you like to go first?
Single
Okay.
from Somei. They're Richmond, Virginia. The single's called Barbarella, and in parentheses, it's Melt Away. The single's going to be released on September 13th, and then the full-length album is going to be released sometime in 2024, but we don't have a date for that. But definitely something to watch out for. When I saw it was for fans of Hum, that like immediately piqued my interest because they're like a great band from Champaign, Illinois. So that's pretty cool. And for this single, I really like the mixture of the heavy and the light. There's some doom elements at the beginning, and then the ethereal vocals come in. It flows into dream pop and alternative, and then the song gets heavier again at the end. There's also some shoegaze, and that with the doom undertones makes it a great example of doom gaze, which is my favorite. So I really liked it.
Yeah, I recognized elements of everything you mentioned as I was listening to the track, which, as you mentioned, will come out in September. And this is from Jason, who has multiple projects that we've discussed before on the show, with Breaths, a project called Breaths, a project called Roseneath, and I guess this is a third project, Somei. So he's
That we
wears
know of.
yes, he wears a lot of hats. All are great music genre projects that he does. It's interesting that they sort of cover different elements. This, I guess, would be his doom gaze project. So this is probably the closest to the bullseye in terms of the type of music you like. But yeah, no, I think it's definitely. I'm excited to hear more from the album. He sent us the single, which had 2 tracks on it. So I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the album when it's finally released. But definitely something to check out if you're into. Yeah, he did mention for fans of Hum. Um, there were a few more mentioned. Let me quickly check that out because I felt like that did a good job explaining it. Yes, heavy shoegaze for fans of Cloakroom, Nothing, Slow Crush, Hum, No Sun, and Whir. So I'm not as familiar with many of those bands, but I think that's probably a good place for me to do a deep dive.
Yes.
So cool, yeah. So definitely check out Somai. The single is available, I guess, for pre-order on Bandcamp. Um, Definitely worth checking out. And then, what can you give us about Psychlona?
Here's Psychlona. They're from the UK, and they have 3 albums: Mojo Rising, Venus Skytrip, and Palo Verde, which I think is a type of tree that grows in the desert. I don't know if that's what they named their band, the album after, but that's what I think it might be. So hopefully they can let us know if that's it or not. Venus Skytrip is an incredible album. I have it in my collection, it was fun revisiting that album, and then listening to their new album. The first thing that popped into my head was tone. They achieved this incredible tone. And the first song, Gasoline, it's a higher tempo and kind of surf rockish. And then another word that popped into my head was smooth. The smooth vocals, and then the song 1975 has this smooth and super cool bass line. And the whole vibe of this album is just cool. I particularly like how it flows in and out of heavy psych and desert rock. The song Jet Plane kind of reminded me of Queens of the Stone Age. And then I love the song La Tolvanera. It is so dreamy, and then it just kicks in. And it's between this and the song 1975 that are my favorites on the album. The vocals on that song, when the tempo picks up and the pacing, it reminded me of a Courtney Barnett song, which never in a million years would I ever think that I would ever go there, but that I put that together. But it did. It reminded me of one of her songs. If you're looking for seriously incredible music that's also fun, definitely check out Psychlona because they're freaking awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anything new that I can necessarily add that you haven't mentioned, just in terms of I smooth definitely came to mind. Um, but also it's an excellent example of like really cool heavy psych stoner rock. So I think trying to articulate anything unique about them would be difficult, but also they don't really sound like anyone else. It's like it's very strange. It's sort of like I would be able to pick them out if I listened to them, and everything they do is really, really, really well done. But I feel like it's also the opposite. Like there's not something that they do that stands out to the point where it's unique, like it's never been done before. It's just, am I making sense right now? I may not be making sense. I did try to look up what Cyclona means, like if
Uh-huh.
it meant any, and I couldn't find anything. It would just point me in the direction of the band. So perhaps they are unique. There is no other. There's not a definition. Like I was trying to think of what a Cyclona could be. I have no idea.
Yeah. To me, it kind of reminded me of, heavy psych, Psychlona, heavy psych, because they're kind of a heavy psych band, but they're not all heavy. It's
Yeah,
not like the whole album is specifically heavy psych. They kind of weave in and out of different forms of stoner rock. But
yeah, they do cover. That's why I was saying it was tough to like nail them down with one particular thing because there's a lot happening. Um,
yeah, yeah,
it's very paradoxical what they're doing, and perhaps that's what Cyclona also means. I don't know because I couldn't find a definition, but I thought it was great. Again, I think you're already well versed in like the heavy psych uh, bands. I think that's sort of where you like to reside in that genre, and I'm still sort of getting into the more of the space rock, psychedelic, stoner rock type stuff. Because I think stoner rock you can kind of go, more Caius based, where it's that kind of like desert sound, or you can go, I don't know. Well, I guess that like Fu Manchu would also be in that sort of realm, and then you can go. What would be the other great example of stoner rock? Um, I can't think of what it would be right now off the top of my head. Who would be the other?
Like on the
Because
on the on the like on the more psychedelic side of
yeah,
stoner
on the
rock.
more psychedelic side, I would say.
Um, Instead of the desert rock side. Well, and then like there's more like kind of like when you start getting towards more of the psychedelic side, there's a lot of space rock
Sure.
that kind of gets kind of goes on that side of stoner rock too. So there's kind of
Yeah.
like
Well,
the
if it's like a spectrum,
yeah, yeah,
on the one side, like the drier side, I
yeah,
guess would be this, the Caiuses and the Fu Manchus and the sort of they have that desert sound. Like it's easy to pinpoint that California kind of like dry desert rock with a
yeah,
specific tone. And then on the more space rock psychedelic side, which I guess I would say might be the sweeter side. Um,
yeah. Like
they're
like
go on.
King Buffalo's a good example of a heavy psych, you
Yeah,
know.
that they because they don't. It's the same genre, but they certainly don't sound like Caius or Fu Manchu. But it's the same. It's all the umbrella term would be stoner rock. But yeah, they're much more on like the heavy psych side of it. So I would say Psychlona definitely finds elements on the spectrum, the whole spectrum, but for the most part, I would say that they're more on the heavy psych side.
Yeah.
So, wow, that was cool. All right, so we've pinpointed a spectrum, which
Yeah.
yeah, I've often found like uh, um, certain, like I guess sleep, you would say would be kind of in the middle because they're sort of like a stoner doom type type thing. But what I always appreciated was like a lot of stoner rock and a lot of doom. You find the one riff that's sort of repetitive, and you just sort of hone in on that riff. So, like my man Jay Bennett said in Such Hawk, Such Hound, sometimes the riff's so good you want to listen to it for 45 minutes. And
Yeah.
I feel like that's a lot of what the music we appreciate does, as
Yeah.
opposed to like progressive, metal or jazz, which tends to go outward into different directions rather than focusing on one repetitive riff. So
Yeah. And I never, you know, to be honest, I never really associated sleep with stoner rock. Which I know they're a stoner rock band, but I always associated sleep with doom.
I think they are definitely more on the doom. They're like a bridge, I would say. There are a couple
Yeah.
bands out there that bridge the gap between the genres. Um, you could argue that Cyclona does that to a certain extent because they do incorporate so many other elements into their music, even though they're very clearly a heavy psych stoner rock band. Um, but yeah, I think you'll find it's these days it's much more difficult for me personally to categorize bands with a single description because usually they incorporate so many other styles into their music, which is part of what makes it so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes it very interesting.
But
Very. It's not really straightforward.
no,
No.
no,
You
and it's cool because I think it shows that most of these bands are exploring, other musical genres and sort of incorporating it into their music. I think previously there had been reliance on more formulaic, like Doom is these chords and this progression, and we're going to play in this playground. And now it's kind of like, I want to be all over the place. I want to go to the water park. I want to go to the library. And I'm going to incorporate all those things into this and make it something that the kid in the brown fedora is going to have difficulty articulating.
Well, the last song, which is a massive jam, you know, and when the guitar when the guitar goes off, and just listening to the guitar, and the guitar playing, and that that is like, wow. you know
Yeah,
and and that's music that's more, plus you're like incorporating in like music that's really guitar forward and guitar driven. So there's music like that too, which is kind of goes in a different direction as well.
sure. Yeah, I would see. It's interesting because I listened to, I think the latest release, and the one before that, that may have been Venus.
Yeah, being a sky trip, and then their latest one is Palo Verde.
Yeah, I listened to both of those, but I feel like I need to go back now. Now that you've provided more insight into like, and then I appreciated this about this song, I can go back and like re-listen to it with a newfound insight into the music. So I plan on, yeah, Psychlona is one of those bands that you can't just listen to once and just be like, okay, that was nice, but I'm gonna move on. No, you got to listen to them a couple times to really appreciate what they're doing.
Yeah,
So I feel like they will stay in my rotation.
yeah.
So all right, cool. Well, I'm really glad you. I had heard of them before, certainly, but I'm glad that we picked them to, or you picked them for us to discuss today.
Yeah, yeah, they're really good. They're really good.
Yeah.
So definitely check them out.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to Somei's album release when it finally comes out, and I plan on revisiting Cyclona. So well
Awesome.
done, Heather. Well done.
Thank you.
And I guess that'll do it for today. But
Yeah,
we will be back next week with more music to discuss.
sounds
So
good.
be well until then.
Thank you.